President finishing his speech at the United Nations. It was a fairly wide-ranging speech. He had some fairly strong language for Russia, calling them out for the strikes that came from within the area of the country that they controlled in Ukraine, and took down that airliner. He also talked about the need for the world to band together. I asked the world to join this effort, he said, against ISIS or ISIL. He said especially Muslim communities to explicitly, forcefully, and consistently reject the ideology of al-Qaeda and of ISIL. He called it a generational battle against the forces of extremism. And he continued on to talk about pulling the world together in that effort to a better world overall. So.
Very much of an international appeal. John
Absolutely.
Bolton's back with us as well, sir. Good day again to you. You've been listening. How do you score it?
Well, I thought it was a stunningly abstract and ethereal speech, really touching on reality only occasionally, and nowhere was that better demonstrated than in the president's lengthy discussion of Islamic extremism. And I think that was the main news coming out of this. This is the longest treatment the president has ever given to the sources of terrorism, and I think there was a lot of very good analysis about the causes of it, and he did lay it out very clearly. But what was stunning was that, having laid out the problem, his recommendation was that the solution to Islamic extremism was negotiation and understanding and generational changes. We've heard from the president so many times about who's on the right or the wrong side of history. The discussion of the threat of ISIS, which had been thought to be a centerpiece of this speech, was relatively brief. And he said nothing new. Now, maybe that will come in his speech to the Security Council this afternoon. But this was a speech fundamentally about multilateralism. And I know that doesn't make hearts go pitter-patter in a tight news cycle, but that's really what he was talking about, keeping those international norms in place.
I thought two lines stuck out. I've made it clear that America will not base our entire foreign policy, he said, on reacting to terrorism. And then a bit later, he said, no external power can bring about a transformation of hearts and minds. Did that stick out for you?
Absolutely. The first sentence, obviously, yet another attack on the George W. Bush administration. And the second, I think, a real statement that the United States is not going to be as centrally involved in dealing with ISIS or regional conflicts as many people in the region hope. He had another line where he said all the powers are going to have to sit down and negotiate a solution. That's implicitly saying Iran, Saudi Arabia, Turkey. That's not going to happen in anybody's lifetime. But the president did take the opportunity to slam Israel by saying that the situation in Gaza and the West Bank was not sustainable, implying more pressure on Israel to resolve those issues with the Palestinians.
I'll just conclude with one line there toward the end. This is what America is prepared to do, he stated, taking action against immediate threats, which would suggest against ISIS and Khorasan there in Aleppo, Syria, while pursuing a world in which the need for such action is diminished. And repeatedly he came back for his call for the world to unite. 10 seconds, we've got to run.
He believes in international institutions as the main bastion of American security. He doesn't believe in American strength. He believes in the United Nations. And I think that's what we're going to see for the next 2 years.
John Bolton, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Here in New York. Martha.
So as we report that, the president's speech from the United Nations, breaking news on new airstrikes in Syria after the break.